Hey everyone, it's Sean and welcome to Invest with Fire. So in this video, we're going to walk through my process of selecting a stock to trade. Selecting stocks is essential and it's where you should be spending 80% of your time. You must understand what you're investing in before you put any money into it, because if the stock drops in price, you might have to own it or sell it for a loss. I've come up with 9 stock selection criteria that you can use to research and understand a company so that you feel confident that when you invest in this company, that you know what you're investing in, and that will give you more confidence to trade options and cover calls with. The company I'll be looking in today is Pinterest, ticker symbol PINS. So the first part of evaluating a stock is that you must understand the story. Researching and understanding the story is one of the most time-intensive parts of investing because it's qualitative and it will vary from one company to the next company. However, you need a high-level understanding of a company. Each company's story will vary from one company to a company. So a good place to start researching a company is by going to a company's investor page and listening to the conference calls, watch investor presentations, and reading the S1, 10K, and 10Q reports. And if you're not familiar with what all these reports are, they're basically financial statement reports that a company has to report to the SEC. It's a good place to start because you're getting this straight from the company and you're not getting this from some biased news outlet. Another simple but very valuable question that you can ask yourself: is the main product significantly better than its competition? If they make a product that's second class, you already know that the company's at a disadvantage. After you do all this research, and if you still don't understand the company, then this company just might not be in your circle of confidence. And maybe you shouldn't invest in it if you don't understand the business model. Taking a look at Pinterest, their mission is to bring everyone the inspiration to create a life that they love. So that's a lot of like Pinterest talk right there. What this translates to me is Pinterest is about connecting people with their idea. And the good thing about this is that by doing this, you're buying something or you're buying experience, right? If someone wants to build a nice bedroom, right? They're going to go Pinterest for inspiration. And when they find something that inspires them, they're going to click on that picture, which might lead them to a business that's selling, what that person wants for the bedroom. We'll take a look at a talk by Ben Silbermann, who is the co-founder and CEO of Pinterest, and he'll give us what Pinterest is about in his own words.
To start out, on the very slim chance there's anyone in the audience who doesn't know Pinterest, maybe you can give us just kind of the 30-second overview.
Look, Pinterest is a visual discovery tool. People use it to get inspiration, to make plans, to get ideas for things in their life. And sometimes they're big things. People will redecorate their home, or they'll plan kind of a once-in-a-lifetime event like a wedding. And sometimes they're small things, maybe picking a new outfit, picking a new recipe to try out. And our goal as a company is to give people that inspiration and then enable them to go do those things in real life. So all of the brands and companies that are here are really important to us because they're kind of the bridge between having an idea and a feeling of wanting to do something, and then being able to actually take action on it in your life.
Okay, great. And given that the theme of the event this year is create the future of retail, tell us what your vision is of the future of shopping.
It's pretty simple, actually. Our mission has been really consistent from the beginning. When you open Pinterest, we want it to feel like all these items were handpicked for you. They represent your taste, your style. It's not about your friends. It's not about the news. It's just about you. And when you see something that catches your eye, we want you to be able to take action on it. And that could mean buying it. That could mean cooking a recipe. But that simple vision, to me, mimics kind of the best parts of offline shopping, where you could walk into a department store and somebody who was an expert, they could help you figure out what's right for you. And to me, that experience of having someone or something help guide you, even if you don't know exactly what you're looking for, that is the biggest area for innovation. I feel like there's been so much innovation in commerce, in making selection great, delivery great, payment reliable, returns reliable, and it's just incredible. Like with your phone, if you know what you're looking for, there are great solutions to get it to your house. But when we talk about shopping, which is kind of an emotional experience, it's an introspective experience, it's a visual experience, I still think there's a lot of innovation yet to come.
And what's also interesting about Pinterest is that they use machine learning and computer vision to curate content for pinners. And Pinterest focuses on providing people things that are related to their search because they come to the platform to figure out what they want. It's always beneficial for Pinterest to create curated content for people because when they come to Pinterest, they're like, oh wow, this is really relevant to what I'm looking for, you know? And that only brings people into the platform more and more, right? So if you can create an AI that does this really well, that only creates a flywheel for people to come to Pinterest. The second part of researching a stock for cover call is looking to the management. So after you research the story, looking to the management and CEO of a company is important because they're the ones leading the company. So some important questions you can ask yourself to evaluate if a CEO is good or not is, does the CEO have a high level understanding of the market? Can the CEO clearly communicate his ideas and vision? And lastly, I like companies that are led by founder CEOs. I've listened to a couple interviews by Ben Silverman, and I believe he's competent. He has an understanding of the market and can communicate his ideas. But sometimes they're in a convoluted way. I do like Pinterest because it is founder led, and I think Ben Silverman has a clear understanding of the market and has a strong vision because he's the one that created the company and brought it up to this point. It's important to look at the market opportunity of business. The company needs to be going after big market opportunity. And ideally you want the number one player in the sector. Pinterest is a leader in image-based searches, but not the number one player in the online advertising space. You know, you have Google and Facebook. However, they are unique in that people go to Pinterest to figure out what they want with images versus Google, they go to figure out what they want on Google with text. So the market opportunity that Pinterest is going after is global advertising. Google, Facebook, Pinterest, Snapchat, right? They all want people to come to their platform and they want businesses to come in and spend money on advertising so that they can market to those people. It's all about bringing more people to their platform. Yeah, Pinterest isn't the number one player, but they are unique in that they are more about image-based searches and connecting people to businesses versus Facebook, right? They're about connecting people to people. Some stats about the online advertising space is that the global advertising market is projected to grow to $826 billion in 2022. And that's coming from where $693 billion was spent in 2018. And that represents about a 5% compound annual growth rate. And this is probably gonna go up because of the Rona. So more businesses are going to be spending more money on online advertising after this. The market opportunity that Pinterest can go after is offline channels. Traditional offline advertising options such as print, direct mail, TV radio, this still accounted for $378 billion in global advertising. So Pinterest can still go after this opportunity. That's what you need to understand when you're investing in a company. How can they grow? What markets can they enter? Because that will drive revenue and that will drive up the share price. And that leads us to our next criteria. In this day and age, it's important to look at the growth strategy of a company. Growth and innovation is a competitive advantage. And it's important for a company to keep growing so that they can continue to grow revenue. If a company isn't growing and not developing new products, they're gonna fall behind the competition. And that's not something you wanna invest in. So taking a look at Pinterest, their growth strategies are first, monthly active users and expanding internationally. The main indicator to know if Pinterest is growing is if their active user base is growing, because the more people that use the app, then the more advertisers want to use the application. From Q2 17 to Q2 20, monthly active users has grown from 185 to 416 million active users. That's a 77% increase. That's pretty good. Pinterest growth is slowing down in America, but it is growing rapidly internationally. And this is one of the keys to growth for this company. Second, continue to improve AI suggestions of image-based searches. By doing this and improving the relevance of recommendations, that will deepen engagement and recommendations for users and will make them want to come back to the app. The third growth strategy for Pinterest is about improving advertising on their platform. Pinterest is focusing on making it easier for businesses to advertise on their platform. This is important because businesses want to make a good ROI on their advertising budget. The more businesses advertise on Pinterest and the more revenue and money that Pinterest makes. The next thing to look at is risk. So to understand a company, it's important to understand what things can put them in danger. And the main risk for Pinterest is the lack of scale. They don't have anything that allows them to scale as much as Facebook or Google. They're going to be fighting for advertising dollars with these two giants. Because with Google, you have Google Search, you have YouTube, right? You have Android, right? You have those three huge things that Google can scale and get advertising dollars into their platform. A good thing about Pinterest though is that they're focused on image search rather than Google and Facebook. Also, 2020 has changed a lot of things and more businesses will be advertising online. I believe that there's room for Pinterest, and I do also like that Pinterest is unique and people go to Pinterest with the intent to shop. Next, it's important to look at a company's fundamentals. Analyzing company's fundamentals will vary from company to company. That's why it's always important to understand the business model of a company. For my cover call strategy, I look at a couple things. First, is the total revenue increasing each year? If the company is increasing the revenue, then that means the company is growing. And more revenue that they bring in, that means more opportunities that the company can make money and expand if they need to. Next, it's important to look how much debit and cash does the company have. Too much debit can weigh a company's balance sheet down and stop the company from growing. If the company has an excess amount of cash, then that gives the company time to operate if they would become unprofitable. So I mainly use Yahoo Finance to look at the finance of the company. I know that you can go in a lot more depths, but these are kind of just general things that you can look into when you're looking into a company and figure out which stocks that you want to invest in for cover calls. I also use screeners to find stocks. That saves a lot of time. So looking at Pinterest, Pinterest is a growth company. Just know that they are in growth mode, and what this means is that they're losing money. However, their total revenue is growing each year and they don't have too much debit. And at the time of this recording, they have about $7.7 billion in cash and $4.3 billion in debit. The next thing to look at is valuation. And this is how you know if a company is undervalued or overvalued. And valuation is another thing that's very dependent on the investor and the business. There's multiple ways that you can value a company. So taking a look at Pinterest, I believe Pinterest is undervalued at the moment, especially when we compare their market value to Twitter and Snapchat, which also have similar business models. So as of October 18th, 2020, Pinterest's market value is at 26 billion, and Twitter is at 36 billion, and Snapchat is at 41 billion. So because of this, Pinterest is undervalued. They're not as valued as highly as Twitter and Snapchat, so there is room for that stock price to grow. I've also projected Pinterest forward valuation, assumed a growth of 33%. So in 2020, I project that Pinterest revenue will be $3.8 billion. And assuming that they have $1 billion in expenses and a multiple ranging from 16 to 34, I predict their share price to range from $90 to $200 in 2 to 3 years. Knowing that their stock price is around 40 something dollars right now, I think Pinterest is undervalued. Say if I were to hold the stock for a long time, I have confidence, assuming that they grow at 33%, that their stock price is going to range from $100 to $200. So it could potentially 4x right now. It's important to keep this in mind because you could watch the growth of a company and keep track of that. And if the growth slows down, you can adjust your valuation and know if you're investing in something that's undervalued or overvalued. The next thing to look at is technical analysis. You have to understand the cover call strategy is a slightly bullish strategy. What this means is that ideally you want the stock price to slowly increase. If it jumps up too much, then it would have been better to invest in that stock for the long term. However, if the stock price were to drastically increase, don't let this really bother you because you have to understand with cover calls, it's about hitting singles and doubles and not going after home runs. A portion of your portfolio should be dedicated for hitting home runs. With cover calls, what you're doing is that you're generating income by selling an option and you're using that income to invest in home runs. So for cover calls, it's really important to understand the trend of stock. You want an uptrend for a stock, obviously, right? You don't want a downtrend where the stock is decreasing. And especially when we're selling call options 30 days out. The 4 chart indicators that I use to analyze the momentum of a stock are MACD, moving averages, the counter channel, and volume. And just understand that these indicators, they're all about analyzing the trend of a stock. And they also give you kind of a trading range where you can look at what it was the past, movement of the stock. And is that stock undervalued or overvalued? Is it trading higher in the range or lower in the range? And that's what these indicators are about. The next thing you must know when you're selecting a stock is when is a company's earnings date. And if you're not familiar with the earnings date, it's basically when a company reports its finances from previous quarter or period. If the company did really well, then they're going to report good earnings and the stock price may increase. And if the company did bad, of course the stock price might go down also. And also there's institutions that trade around earnings date. There's an old saying that you buy the rumor and sell the news. What institutions do is that they buy up the stock before the earnings report and they sell after the earnings reports, no matter even if they had a good reporting period. And they do this just to make a short-term profit. So just understand that there's volatility behind the earnings report. Ideally, you don't want to trade covered calls during this period because you don't want the stock price to drastically decrease. So you may get better premiums around the earnings period, but your stock price may also decrease, negating any premium that you got when you sold it. So I use the site Earning Whispers to find out the earnings date. And in my experience, Yahoo Finance earnings date is not that very accurate. Pinterest earnings date is on October 28th, and that's coming up. And because the earnings are coming up, I will probably be holding off trading Pinterest until after the earnings. And that's when we'll probably make our first trade. So this is my way of researching and selecting stock for covered calls. I always continuously research and I'm looking into businesses, and my opinion on a business may change from day to day. But if you're selecting a stock to invest in for the long term and selling covered calls also, it's really important to understand the business and what you're investing into. If you're interested in continuing to follow along, where our goal is to make $1,000 with $5,000 for a 20% return, click on the next video above. There may not be a video there yet, but once we actually submit our first trade and I make a video on it, I'm gonna link it above, and so that you can follow along on this journey. So that being said, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.